Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a massive, kind of mind-bending paradox. We call it the Great Economic Disconnect. On paper, America is supposedly richer than ever. The stock market is constantly hitting record highs, billionaires are just multiplying their wealth, and mega corporations are posting record profits. But you step out into the real world, and it feels like ordinary people are struggling just to survive. So, why are millions suddenly finding it so hard to afford the basics? Well, grab a seat because today we're going to break down the hidden forces that are quietly reshaping our reality.
So here's the million-dollar question, right? If the economy is doing so incredibly well, why does it feel like you're struggling more than ever before? And let me be clear, this isn't just a temporary bout of inflation we're talking about. We're actually watching a quiet, ongoing structural shift of the entire American middle class in real time. And honestly, most people don't quite understand what's actually happening beneath the surface.
I mean, think about it. If you only listen to financial news anchors, it's all sunshine and rainbows, GDP growth, low unemployment, booming markets. But step into ordinary reality, and boom, it's a completely different story. Rent prices have absolutely exploded. Grocery bills, deeply painful. Insurance and healthcare costs have surged. It feels like everything suddenly got super expensive all at the exact same time, while our paychecks have barely budged. There's just this massive, exhausting disconnect between the booming headlines and the very real cost of simply existing in America right now. All right, let's start peeling back the layers. Layer one, the credit card illusion. So, if everything is so incredibly expensive, how are everyday Americans actually pulling it off? How are they managing to afford their lives right now? Well, the uncomfortable truth goes way deeper than just inflation. People aren't surviving because they suddenly struck it rich or got some massive pay bump. They are surviving because they're borrowing more. They're heavily leaning on debt just to stay afloat, whipping out plastic for basic emergencies, a tank of gas, or just to cover standard monthly bills. In fact, credit card debt in the US has hit unprecedented historic highs. And it's wild because from the outside, everything looks totally normal, doesn't it? You go out and restaurants are packed, airports are buzzing, malls are full, but behind that shiny facade, millions are quietly drowning financially. They're living paycheck to paycheck, literally one missed payment away from total disaster. And here is the really scary part. The whole system actually depends on us continuing to spend money, even when we genuinely can't afford it. Consumer spending is the engine keeping this economy alive. So people keep swiping those cards while sky-high interest rates quietly dig the hole deeper and deeper. It creates this flawless illusion of stability. But trust me, there is massive pressure building right beneath the surface. Which brings us to layer two, the demise of the middle class. Because, debt alone doesn't entirely explain the sheer exhaustion so many of us are feeling. For that, we have to look at how the basic rules of the game have changed over the last few decades. Think back a generation ago. One single income could realistically buy a house, raise a family, own a car, and still leave room for savings. Today, even with two adults working full-time, households are getting crushed by exploding rent and massive student loans. Instead of building wealth, they're just treading water, trying their hardest not to fall completely behind. Because literally almost every fundamental necessity, housing, education, healthcare, childcare, food, became drastically more expensive all at once. But wages? They totally stagnated. They simply didn't rise fast enough to match the bills. And because of this, young adults today are entering a totally different, vastly harsher economic reality than their parents did. They are essentially locked out of the traditional wealth building system. So, what's driving all this? Let's look at the root cause, the asset divide. How did this huge gap between our wages and the cost of living even happen? Well, look at what happens every time we hit an economic crisis. The government and the Fed pump trillions, yes, trillions with a T, into the economy to prevent a total collapse. But here's the catch. That money doesn't flow down to everyone evenly. Far from it. Instead, those trillions largely just inflate asset prices. Stocks surge, real estate explodes, luxury goods skyrocket. Meaning, if you were lucky enough to own assets when those trillions entered the system, boom, you became dramatically wealthier. But if you were a renter living paycheck to paycheck, your life simply got vastly more expensive. We've effectively created two Americas. One America owns assets and rides a wave when markets rise. The other America rents everything and struggles to survive the resulting inflation. And this didn't happen overnight. It was a slow burn, year after year, until millions suddenly felt locked out. Now, let's talk about layer three, the white-collar AI threat. As if those structural divides weren't enough to deal with, we've got a massive technological curveball coming in hot. For years, we kind of assumed new tech would mostly replace physical or manual labor, right? But artificial intelligence is different. Customer service, writing, design, coding, high level analysis. AI is coming straight for white collar stability. Entire industries are transforming at breakneck speed, fundamentally changing the game for knowledge workers. Now, don't get me wrong, AI is going to generate staggering amounts of wealth. But experts are deeply, deeply worried that this wealth is going to concentrate right at the very top. So, for the already exhausted everyday worker, they're left staring down the barrel of slower wage growth, serious job instability, or even total replacement, right when just buying groceries is already a major struggle. All right, let's tie this all together with the core, the human cost, and the future. When you strip away the inflation, the debt, the tech, the deepest, most damaging impact of this whole shift is psychological. Millions of people faithfully followed the old American dream playbook. You know the one: go to school, work your tail off, follow the rules, achieve stability. Today, people feel completely betrayed. They played exactly by the rules they were given, and yet that promised stability just keeps slipping further and further out of reach. And that kind of betrayal, it changes a society. When people realize the financial game itself is just fundamentally stacked and that hard work no longer guarantees a better future, things shift. Trust totally plummets. Anger rises. The financial stress bleeds into our relationships and wreaks havoc on our mental health. This is exactly why so many people feel completely exhausted right now. It's not a lack of effort, it's a system that demands twice as much from you just to stand still. Now, look, America isn't collapsing tomorrow, okay? But the old middle class lifestyle that defined the country is undeniably harder to pull off. The economy is changing, the job market is changing, heck, money itself is changing. The people who survive and thrive in this next decade won't necessarily be the smartest in the traditional sense. They are going to be the most adaptable. Supreme adaptability is absolutely going to be your most important tool going forward. So, I want to leave you with this final thought. The next huge financial shock, it's already brewing, but it's not going to look anything like the housing crash of 2008. It's going to be a totally different beast, shaped by AI, hidden debt, and this crazy asset divide. Most people won't see it coming until it's right on top of them. The question is, will you? Stay vigilant, stay adaptable, and keep working to understand the hidden forces shaping our world. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.